On Christmas Eve, in a small chapel on the coast of Maine, an old upright piano will play a song for the first time in 81 years. A 98-year-old woman will be wheeled to the front row to hear it, and when the first chord rings out, she will press both hands to her mouth and weep in a way her nurse has never seen her weep before. Nobody in Sparrow Cove could have told you, before that night, why the piano in the chapel loft had been locked since before most of them were born. They only knew that Walter Pruitt kept the only key, and that Walter Pruitt did not explain himself to anybody. What that piano had been keeping silent for 81 years would turn a quiet fishing town's Christmas Eve service into the kind of night people still talk about years later. But first, you should meet the girl who wouldn't stop asking about the loft. Sparrow Cove is the kind of town where the harbor decides everything. When the boats go out, when the bell rings for supper, when the whole place smells like salt and diesel and low tide, there's one general store, one chapel with white clapboard siding gone silver at the edges, and a bell tower you can hear from every porch in town on a still morning. Nora Fenwick is 15, with a braid she redoes 6 times a day because the sea wind won't leave it alone, and fingerless gloves she wears even indoors because the chapel hall is never quite warm enough in December. She plays a battered electric keyboard for the youth choir every Sunday, propped on a folding stand because the chapel's real piano, the good one, the one with the rich, warm tone everybody remembers from decades ago, sits locked in the loft above the sanctuary and has for as long as anyone can recall. She carries a spiral notebook everywhere, its cover soft and fraying from wear, filled with hand-copied sheet music in pencil. Some of it is hymns, some of it, tucked in the very back where she thinks nobody looks, is her own. Walter Pruitt is 97 years old, and on a cold Tuesday afternoon in early December, he's up on a short ladder in the chapel bell tower, oiling the hinge of the old bell housing with the same unhurried patience he's brought to every task in this building for over 50 years. His hands are thick-knuckled and sure despite his age. He wears a navy pea coat gone soft and gray with decades of wear, the collar turned up against the wind coming off the water. Tucked in his breast pocket, where it's ridden for longer than most people in town have been alive, is a small brass pitch pipe, its surface worn smooth. 2 initials engraved so faintly now you'd have to know to look for them. SD Nora climbs the tower stairs to tell him the youth choir's keyboard has a dead key again, and finds him tapping the pitch pipe once absently against his palm, the way he always does when his mind has wandered somewhere else. "Mr. Pruitt," she says, "could we just use the loft piano for the Christmas Eve service? Just this once?" Walter doesn't look up from the bell hinge. "No, it's just sitting up there. It's not just sitting," he says. "It's resting. There's a difference, and I'd thank you to let it keep doing that." Nora doesn't let it go. She's 15, not foolish, and she's learned that grown-ups who say no too fast are usually the ones with the most interesting reasons. She starts finding excuses to be near Walter in the weeks that follow, helping stack hymnals, sweeping the vestibule, sitting quietly nearby while he repairs a loose floorboard near the altar. She doesn't ask about the piano again directly. She just stays close enough that eventually something has to give. It gives on a gray Thursday, when a delivery truck rumbles past the chapel windows and Walter's hand goes still on his hammer. His eyes fix somewhere past the wall, past the harbor, past anything actually in the room. "That sound," he says quietly, not really to Nora at all. "Diesel trucks always did that to me. Never could say why, till I figured out it was close enough to engine noise from the transports." "Transports?" Nora asks, careful. like she's stepping onto ice she isn't sure will hold. Walter blinks and comes back to himself and looks at her like he's deciding something. "There's a piano up in that loft," he says slowly. "That belonged to a friend of mine. Best friend I had, before or since. His name was Sammy Doyle, and where I served in the Pacific. That boy could make an old field organ sound like a church back home, just to keep the rest of us from losing our minds. His thumb finds the pitch pipe in his pocket, turns it once. Sammy didn't come home," Walter says. "And that's the last I'll say about it today. It's the first door. Barely open, but open. If your town has a bell tower, or a building that's older than everybody in it, tell us where you're watching from down in the comments. We love hearing about the little corners of the country you call home." That night, Nora sits at her desk with two things in front of her. The first is her spiral notebook open to the back pages, the ones with her own music on them, careful and cramped, the closest thing she has to a diary. The second is an envelope from the Blackwood Conservatory, 3 states away, inviting her to audition for their young musicians program in the spring. It's been sitting in the bottom of her school bag for 11 days. She hasn't told her parents. Her father runs 2 lobster boats and has never once suggested Sparrow Cove wasn't enough for anybody. Her mother keeps the books for half the town's fishermen and has never asked Nora for anything except to come home safe. Nora doesn't know how to tell them she might want something the town can't hold. So she hasn't told them anything at all. The envelope just sits there, unanswered. The same way, though she doesn't know this yet, a scrap of music has sat silent in a piano bench above her head for 81 years. She doesn't call it fear. She calls it not the right time yet. It will be a while before she notices how much that sounds like something Walter Pruitt might say. It takes another 2 weeks. A broken choir keyboard nobody can afford to replace before Christmas. And Nora simply refusing to stop showing up before Walter finally climbs the loft stairs with the key in his hand. The piano beneath its canvas cover is dark, upright, dust thick along the closed lid, but cared for underneath, the way only a thing regularly checked on and never used can be cared for. Walter runs his palm along the wood like he's greeting something. Sammy used to say a chapel without music is just a cold room with good acoustics, Walter says. He almost smiles. He opens the bench, and beneath a stack of old hymnals, wrapped in oilcloth gone stiff and yellow, is a single folded sheet of music paper, water-stained along one edge. The notes hand-drawn in pencil that's gone soft and pale with age. The staff lines run for 2 full pages and then simply stop. Mid-phrase, the final measure's blank. He was writing this the whole last month, Walter says, voice rough. Said it was for his girl back home and for his mother, and he was going to play the finished thing for both of them the day he walked back through that chapel door. He hummed it to me so many times I could still sing it back to you note for note, even now. But he never got to finish writing the last part down, and the war didn't wait for him to finish it. Nora looks at the blank measures at the end. Before he passed, Walter says, he made me promise I'd bring this home, to this chapel, and get it played, finished whole, the way he meant it for the people he loved. I've had 81 years and every Christmas Eve to do it. Why haven't you? Walter's throat works, the same old ache in it Nora doesn't yet have a name for. Because I'm no composer, child, he says. I can hum you every note that boy ever wrote, but I cannot for the life of me put the ending on a song somebody else started. I've been guarding an unfinished promise instead of admitting I was never the one who could finish it. There's a woman, Walter says, who might remember more of the melody than he does. Sammy's girl. Eleanor Voss, if she's even still living, and if she is, she'd be pushing 98 now, out at the Harbor Pines home over in Cardigan Point. Nora doesn't wait for Walter to decide whether it's a good idea. She just asks her mother to drive them the following Saturday, and Walter, muttering the whole way about foolish girls with more nerve than sense, comes along anyway, pitch pipe in his pocket, oilcloth-wrapped music in a folder on his lap. Eleanor Voss is small in her wheelchair, sharp-eyed despite her age, and when Walter says Sammy's name, something in her whole face changes, the decades falling away for just a moment. "Walter Pruitt," she says. "I always wondered if you'd made it home whole." "Wondering's a fair word for it," Walter says. When he unfolds the water-stained pages, Eleanor's hand trembles reaching for them. She doesn't need to read the notes. She hums instead, quiet and cracked but unmistakably sure. 4 bars, 5, filling in a shape Walter's memory alone never quite completed. Sammy had sung her a different piece of it, she explains. The last time he was home on leave. A version just for her that he never got to show Walter at all. Between Walter's memory and Eleanor's, and the water-stained notes on the page, there's suddenly almost a whole song. Almost. "Somebody still needs to write it down proper," Eleanor says, looking at Nora with eyes that miss very little. You've got a musician's hands. I can see it in how you're holding that folder like it might break." Nora spends the next 10 days doing something she's never done before, finishing music that isn't hers. She sits with Walter's hummed fragments, Eleanor's remembered verse, and Sammy's own handwriting on the page. She works out, phrase by careful phrase, how the pieces fit, testing chords on the borrowed keyboard until something clicks into place that feels less like her own composition and more like she's simply helping a very old song finally remember the rest of itself. Somewhere in the middle of that work, sitting alone at her desk one night with staff paper spread in front of her, Nora finally opens the drawer, takes out the Blackwood Conservatory envelope, and reads it all the way through for the first time. She thinks about Walter, carrying an unfinished ending for 81 years because he was too afraid it wasn't his to complete. She thinks about how easy it would be to let this envelope sit in a drawer for 81 years too, if she let it. That night she tells her mother about the audition. Her mother cries, but not the way Nora feared. She cries the way people do when something they already suspected finally gets said out loud, and cups Nora's face in both hands and says, "Sparrow Cove will still be here whether you go or not." That was never the question you needed to be scared of. By the 3rd week of December, Nora has it, a completed piece Sammy's melody carried all the way through to a real ending, written out clean in her careful hand beneath his original, older notation. She brings it to Walter on the chapel steps. Snow just starting to come down, soft and quiet behind her. Walter reads it the way a man reads something he's waited a lifetime to see, mouthing the note silently. His pitch pipe pressed so hard into his palm his knuckles go pale. "That's it," he says finally, and his voice breaks clean in half. "Lord help me, child, that's exactly it. Will you play it?" Nora asks. Walter shakes his head. "I never could play worth a lick. That was always Sammy's gift, not mine." He looks at her steady. "But you can. And I think that was always how this was supposed to go. I was only ever meant to carry it far enough to hand it to somebody who could finish the job." The chapel is full on Christmas, even a way Sparrow Cove hasn't seen in years. Word travels fast in a small town, and half of them have heard some version of the story by now. Eleanor Voss is wheeled to the front row, a blanket over her knees. Walter sitting beside her, holding her hand the way old friends do when they finally run out of reasons to hold anything back. The piano loft's canvas cover is gone. The lid is open. Nora sits at the bench that held a secret for 81 years, spiral notebook beside her, though she doesn't need it anymore. She knows every note by heart. She plays the first phrase, the one Sammy Doyle wrote before the war took the rest of his time away. And the chapel goes still in the particular way a room goes still when everyone in it understands, without being told, that they're hearing something that matters. Then she reaches the part that never used to exist, the ending. Built from an old man's memory and a widow's 50-year-old humming, and a 15-year-old girl's steady hands. And the whole room seems to lean forward at once. When the last chord fades, Eleanor Voss presses both hands to her mouth, and Walter Pruitt, 97 years old, cries in front of his whole town for the first time anybody there has ever witnessed. "He came home after all," Eleanor whispers. "It just took him 81 years and a little girl with steady hands to get here." Here is what Nora Fenwick carries with her now. Into every audition, every unfinished page of her own music, every closed door she isn't sure yet how to open. Some promises were never meant to be finished by the one who made them. They're meant to be carried far enough to reach someone brave enough to finish the job. Walter Pruitt spent 81 years believing that keeping Sammy's song locked away was the same as keeping his promise. It wasn't. The promise was never to finish the song alone. It was only ever to carry it far enough, faithfully enough for it to eventually find the hands that could. And Nora, who spent weeks hiding an envelope the same way Walter hid a piece of sheet music, learned that some doors don't get less frightening the longer you leave them shut. They only get heavier to carry. Walter Pruitt still keeps the chapel key, though these days the piano loft stays unlocked, and on quiet afternoons you can find him up there most days, just sitting near it, pitch pipe in hand, at peace in a way his neighbors say they've never quite seen in him before. Eleanor Voss passed that following spring, gently in her sleep, with a recording of Nora's Christmas Eve performance playing softly in her room, at her own request, on a loop that never had to stop. Nora auditioned for the Blackwood Conservatory in March. She got in. She still comes home every Christmas Eve to play Sammy Doyle's finished song for the town that first heard it, and for one very old man in a navy peacoat, sitting in the front row turning a small brass pitch pipe over and over in his hand. If there's a page in your own life sitting unfinished, a dream you've tucked in a drawer, a piece of yourself you've been too afraid to show anyone, a door you keep telling yourself isn't the right time to open, we hope tonight's story is a gentle reminder that you were never meant to carry it alone, or finish it alone either. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply carry something faithfully long enough for the right hands to find it. We believe the songs and the promises that matter most always seem to find their way home eventually, often through people we'd never have guessed would be the ones to carry them there. Is there a song, a letter, or a memory in your family that finally came home after many years? We'd love to hear that story in the comments below. If tonight's story moved you, we'd be so grateful if you'd hit like and subscribe. It helps stories like this one reach the people who need to hear them most. Thank you for spending this evening with us. We'll see you in the next story.